Okay. So for anybody that's here, well, for everybody that is here, welcome to the Introduction to Python class. Basically, this is my latest project called Silicon Dojo Online. So as you may or may not know, I've been doing tech education since 2009. I like doing tech education. I hate the YouTube world with a passion. And so when I moved here to Asheville, North Carolina, about 3.5 years ago, I had this idea for what if there was hands-on tech education that empowered people to do whatever the hell it is that they wanted to do. And I've been working on that, or I was working on that for about 3 years here in Asheville. And I found out Asheville just doesn't care. They really don't give a fuck around here about tech education. I can say many stories. This is not where I had one bad circumstance or something like that. It is it's a curious thing around here. So, anyways, basically, I had the idea then. I didn't originally want to do this online, but well, fuck it, you're in the situation that you're in. You only have the options that you have available. And so my question now is, can we do Silicon Dojo online? Again, the idea of authorityless, gatekeeperless, free to end user, hands-on technology education that empowers you to do whatever the hell it is that you want to do, right? Authorityless, you just come to Meetup or whatever RSVP system we use in the future, and you just sign up, right? There's no system of gatekeeperism, I suppose, for somebody to do something stupid with, right? Gatekeeperless, authorityless. Again, basically, you come, you learn. I'd like to try to do this as free to the end user. And when I talk about free to the end user, the concept for me has actually existed since around 2012, 2013, where one of the fascinating things with YouTube was I was able to provide a lot of high quality tech education to a lot of people all around the world. They could access it simply by going to YouTube and watching the videos. And at one point, I got paid a lot of money off of YouTube. And so there is that question of can you actually create something that's good for all parties and makes the person that's providing the education actually make some money? Right. So that's the question. I don't know how long that will stick around. That may disappear at some point, but we're going to try to do that right now. There's donor box links. I don't know, somewhere. I'll put those up in the next classes. If you want to throw some money in to help out with these types of classes, then we'll accept the money. And the idea being is the people that can pay do pay. People that are willing to pay do pay. People that can't or unwilling to pay don't pay, and we just move along. What if we can abstract the financial component from the education component? Is basically the question. And then the idea too is to empower the student to do whatever the hell it is that they want. So I've done tech education. Again, I've gone through military education and college education and certifications and the whole nine yards. And one of the big problems that I see nowadays is most tech education out there has nothing to do with teaching you how to solve problems and everything to do with the professor's 401k plan. Which is a bad thing, right? You come out like I have had people watch my OSI model video from 10 years ago and say they went through 4 years of university and did not understand the OSI model until they watched my 40-minute video. All right, they spend $60,000, $100,000 in university, and they don't even understand what the OSI model is coming out of it. So, anyways, hopefully with this kind of stuff, we're going to do a lot of projects and things with the idea of showing you how to actually build things so you folks can go off and do whatever the hell it is that you want to do. Let's see here. Questions that have already come up. So we're going to be using VS Code. For Python, most programming languages, when we do Python and JavaScript and CSS and HTML and all this other crap, we're going to be using VS Code. Now, a lot of people asked already, do I have to use VS Code? Well, what I'll say is that this VS Code isn't really for you. It is for you, and it's also not for you at the same time. What I would like to do with this is I want you to be able to do these projects. I want you to do hands-on work to actually do these projects, which means you're going to be tippy-tap typing out the code. And spoiler alert, you're going to fuck up because everybody does, which is fine. Here's the thing. If we can do screen share and I can put your screen up here and I can very easily through things like color coding and text and font and all that, I can see what's going on. It's a hell of a lot easier for me to troubleshoot the issue. Because again, there's this idea that people in authority positions like know everything. I don't. I don't. I'm stupid enough to be here. So, anyways, so so if you're using a different IDE, what PyCharm or something like that, is it PyCharm? Anyways, you're using a different IDE. One of the problems is the code works fine. You can use any IDE. You can use a text editor to create Python code. The issue is when I pull that crap up on this screen, it's not going to be color coded the way that I'm expected or anything else, and so I'm going to be like, okay, there's a open the quotation mark here and you close it there. That looks fine. Open the parenthesis there, close the parenthesis there. Okay, that looks fine. Right? It's going to be a lot more difficult. So we're going to use VS Code, and I'm going to standardize on a lot of things just because it makes everybody's life easier in the real world, in a production environment. You do whatever the hell you want to do. Again, remember, there's a difference between education and the real world. One of the things is, again, I do see that we have 47 people here today. So this is the first class. I put the RSVP out thing on Sunday, so that's pretty good. In about 2 days, we have about 50 people showing up to the first class. One of the things I will warn you folks is always remember, distrust, verify, stay suspicious. If you assume people are child rapists, you won't be surprised when they do something stupid, right? So you guys, there's like 50 of you, and you guys might start chatting, right? And somebody might say something smart in the chat section. Here's the deal. You have no idea if the rest of the people in this meetup are hackers or terrorists or police officers. You have no idea who these people are. So if you decide to be friends with other people in this group, great. I would not give them my social security number. You do you. Camera on. So I see some people have a camera on and some people have their camera off. I would recommend that you have your camera on. Again, there's a big thing in the technology world. If you want to get a job, if you want to get ahead, people know you. It's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. If people get used to your face and you actually start asking questions that make a damn bit of sense, people will be like, oh, that's a smart person. And they might be like, that's a smart person I want to hire. So I know that's a weird thing. I'm not forcing you to turn your cameras on, but I would recommend that you do so people get to know you. Let's see here. As far as questions are concerned, raise your hand. So if you go down to the whole React button, there's a raise the hand thing. You can raise your hand and then you can lower your hand. So that's how I answer questions. So you're all muted. You will remain muted until you ask a question. When you do ask a question, please stay on topic. Again, I do know there's a lot of bored people nowadays, and there are a lot of they're interested in a lot of different things. And so if you come here, you're like, Eli, but what about SQLite? Um, uh-oh. You are following. Why am I following Genji? No, stop following. Genji, what are you doing? What is Genji doing? What did Genji do? I don't know what Genji's doing. Stop, Genji, stop. It's gonna be one of those days, isn't it? Anyways, please ask actual questions after work is done. So after the work is done, right? So basically, when we're doing this and when we're doing the hands-on work, please ask questions about what the class is today. Once everybody seems like they are through that period of time, then you can ask me a question about why I hate no developers or whatever else. Leave that till the very, very, very end. And yeah, that's about what I've got to say. Let me put, you all still see me, right? Yeah, you're still seeing me. Why am I saying happy journey? I don't know. Happy journey, what are you doing? Okay, so we are going to go into Python. So I got 49 people, but I only see, yeah, okay, so I see a lot of you folks there. I am not a huge Zoom. Maybe I want to see a grid. There, I'll see a grid. I'll see some of you folks. Hold on one second. How do I see? Um, How do I see people's reactions? Play shine, post tools. Oh well, we will get to that point. Why is there a little security thing? Sorry, boys and girls, there's a little security thing. Meeting information. Encryption. There's one exception. Okay. Welcome to a live class. Welcome to a live class. Okay, so we are doing Introduction to Python today. So this is going to be the first in a series of classes for Python. So there'll probably be like 30 classes at the end of the day. Hopefully, one of the concepts of Silicon Dojo is that you can kind of mix and match the classes that you want to go into. So you don't necessarily have to do 1 through 30. The idea is hopefully I can break these classes down to the point where you can jump into functions one week and learn about SQLite the next week and then learn about APIs the next week. That's the hope. But anyways, this is the first class in the Python series. So if you're wondering why you should learn Python in the modern world, so a lot of people, especially when they're new, basically the question is what programming language should they learn? And if they know any professional coders, basically those professional coders will tell you that you should learn what they know because obviously it's the best, right? The reality with programming languages is programming languages are basically like any other application that is going to be on your computer, right? If you want to write an email, you're going to use Mail or some kind of email client. If you want to write an invoice, you're going to use QuickBooks. If you want to write a term paper, you are going to use, Word or Google Docs or something like that. If you want to do a keynote presentation or a slideshow presentation, you're going to use Keynote or you're going to use PowerPoint, right? Technically, theoretically, you could write an entire term paper in QuickBooks, right? You could create a QuickBooks invoice that has a 10-page term paper on it. Your professor is probably not going to be amused by that, right? Basically, the same kind of thing is true when we start taking a look at programming languages, right? All of these programming languages are designed to do specific things relatively well. They can do other things, many times piss poorly. And so one of the big questions that you have to be thinking about is, again, it's like, what kinds of problems do you actually want to solve? And then when you figure out what kind of problem you're going to try to solve, then you learn the language that corresponds to that. Let's say if you're going to use the Microsoft stack. So we talk about stacks. This is the entire, what's called the stack of technology. So when we talk about the Microsoft stack, we're talking about the Microsoft operating systems, the server and the client operating systems. We're talking about something called Active Directory, or we're talking about Office 365 or Exchange Server. You're talking about all of that kind of stuff. And so there's a programming language for Microsoft called C Sharp. And basically, C Sharp has been designed so that you can build applications on the Microsoft stack really, really easily. So if you want to be able to connect some kind of email service into Azure, into their cognitive services, do something like that, C Sharp would be the way to go. If you're going to do a lot of front-end development, people like JavaScript. So whenever you go to a website and you see kind of the interactivity on that website, that's most likely going to be presented by JavaScript. So if you want to be a front-end developer, you would most likely do something like JavaScript. The thing with Python nowadays, is basically this is the super glue of the modern digital world. When you write things in Python, basically what you're able to do is you're able to grab and interact with many different types of sources of information relatively easily. So if you want to communicate with your underlying operating system, you can use a module called OS that allows you to literally communicate with your underlying operating system, be able to run commands to the operating system, be able to pull information in, that type of thing. If you want to connect to a database, Python does that really easily. One of the big things with Python is that it allows you to connect to APIs. So APIs are application programming interfaces, and this is all of the services that are provided by the tech companies, right? So if you think about Twilio for SMS messaging, right? Being able to send out text messages or receive text messages. If you think about being able to send out emails using an API, something called SendGrid is another service. There's a lot of APIs. We're going to be dealing with a lot of APIs over these classes. OpenAI actually has an API, so you can write code. So you can write code in Python that's on your computer, communicates to OpenAI's AI, receives the response back, and then does something based off of that response. So you're able to communicate with the APIs. And so that's one of the valuable things with Python. What it makes, why is a good programming language now is it basically allows you to superglue all of these different data sources together for you to, again, solve whatever problems that you're trying to solve for. One of the interesting things with Python is that it's actually a language that a lot of non-technology professionals use. So I've talked with a lot of scientists over the past couple of years. There's a lot of geoscience here in Nashville for whatever reason. And one of the curious things nowadays is with scientists, they actually have too much data to deal with, right? There's all these sensors and all these logs and all these historical records. And so if you're a scientist and you're trying to figure out an answer to something, right? If you've got millions and millions and millions of records, it's very difficult to manually go through and try to figure out what's going on there. So I actually know a lot of scientists. Python is their programming language, and the reason is because they can open up documents, they can open up all these different types of data sources, they can parse those data sources. So parsing is when a computer language reads to pull out the information that you care about. They can parse those data sources, and then they can dump it into something like a database where they can then run queries to try to figure out what the useful information is. All right, that's one of the things with Python. Python basically replaced PHP somewhere around the 2010 timeframe. So PHP was really, really popular up until about 2010. I still like PHP. PHP is still a damn good language, but anyways, I get a lot of hate for that. What PHP allowed is it allowed for Web 2.0. What Web 2.0 was basically dynamic websites or dynamic web applications. Web 1.0 was basically a static website. You have HTML, you have CSS, maybe you have some crappy JavaScript, and that's it, right? The page you code is the page the user gets. Well, you go to Web 2.0, and that's where you start to get to see dynamic web pages. Dynamic web pages is where essentially you have a database as a back end, and then when a user goes to a web page, that web page is automatically, literally written for that user when they go to it from the information in the database. So PHP was very valuable back then when you owned all of your architecture. So in these classes, I'm going to talk about architecture a lot. And basically what that means, or your infrastructure, is how are your systems designed? Not just where is your code, but when your code is talking to things, who owns those things? So back in the PHP era, again, you think about 2010, you owned all of your resources. You owned your database server. You owned your web server. You owned your file server, that type of thing. And so what PHP allowed you to do is with your web application, you could use PHP to communicate to your MySQL database server, to your file server, all those kinds of things relatively easily. We get to the 2010 timeframe, and we get a new architecture style called service-oriented architecture. And with service-oriented architecture, what that means is that you generally do not actually own the resources. Instead of you owning your database server is now hosted with AWS, right? Instead of you owning your file server, your files are hosted at Azure. Instead of you having whatever service, those services are provided by other companies. So in order for you to access, for you to send data to those other companies or receive the responses, there's something called APIs that are created, application programming interfaces. And basically, when these companies were coding their APIs, they had to decide what programming languages they would support. So whenever you're going to go to use an API, again, Twilio, SendGrid, OpenAI, whatever else, you are going to see that they support certain languages. So again, back in 2010, 2012 timeframe, they decided that they were going to support Python. They were not going to support PHP. They were going to support Python. And that's one of the reasons that Python took off, mainly because, again, when we talk about solving problems in the technology world, is you have to use the technology that'll solve the problem. If the APIs, if you can only access the APIs by using Python, then you need to use Python, right? There's no other question or anything about that. So yeah, when we talk about Python, it allows us to connect to APIs, operating systems, databases, something called infrastructure as a service. Again, we talk about Azure or AWS or DigitalOcean, that's IaaS, and IoT, Internet of Things devices. One of the big things to think about, again, especially get a lot of new people, and they're like, Eli, what's the one language I should learn? So that's a dumb question. It's a language, not a human being. To be clear, you do not marry languages. There's this idea, like if you do Node, you can only do Node. That's not how the real world works. You do not have to be married to a single language. You can learn Python. You can take 30 classes, you can get good at Python, and then you can decide you hate Python. That is a reasonable answer, right? And you decide you like JavaScript. Um, again, if you learn Python, this does not keep you from learning other languages. One of the big things to be thinking about too in this whole idea of what single language you need to learn is when we start building apps, if you've watched any of my classes on this kind of subject material, what you're going to realize is you're going to have to learn a lot of languages anyway, right? When you deploy an app, unless it is incredibly simple, stupidly effing simple, it's not going to be one single programming language. So if you're going to deploy a web application using a framework called Bottle or Django or Flask for Python, in order to deploy that web application, not only are you going to need to know Python, but you'll also need to know HTML. You'll also need to know CSS. You'll also probably need to know JavaScript, and you'll probably also need to know SQL, structured query language for the database. So basically, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 languages for a dirt simple application. Once you start adding some additional stuff to it, again, so some of these apps, some not horribly complicated apps, you literally might get up to 10 languages just to deploy that. That's where you'll hear about full stack developers. So you'll hear about like front end developers and back end developers and full stack developers. So a front end developer basically develops the front end. When a user goes to a website, what's that website going to look like? How are you going to interact with it? A back-end developer basically develops when information is pulled in from that website or from that app. How does it get stored into the database? How does it get stored into the data store? How does it get pulled from those things? That type of deal. And then you have a full stack developer. The full stack developer is able to develop for the full stack. And yeah, you're going to need to know a lot. And not only that, but then you're also going to need to know the operating system that you're going to be running. So you need to know Linux commands and all that kind of stuff. So, yep. Let's see here. Python 2 versus Python 3. Hopefully, we're getting far enough away from Python 2. This will stop being a fucking question pretty soon. So basically, there's Python 1. Python 1 died back in like 2000 or something. Then they came out with Python 2. And that was supposed to die in 2012. I do believe it was 2012 it was supposed to die. But again, if you're in the tech world, the word that you hate more than anything is legacy applications. So the idea was Python 2 was supposed to die somewhere around 2012. Again, geeks, technology professionals would not let the damn thing die, and so it didn't get an end of life until January 1 of 2020. So again, we talk about the horrors of legacy. A language that was supposed to die back in 2012 still struggled along for another 8 years. The thing is, between Python 2 and Python 3, it's very important to understand that Python 3 is a hard fork of Python 2. So if you look at most languages that you're going to learn, if you look at PHP, if you look at JavaScript, C#, those types of things, there are versions of the language, but more or less, horseshoes and hand grenades, they are interoperable. Right, so basically it's like any other kind of software out there, right? You know, every year, every 2 years, they come out with the latest version. Basically, they pull things out of the previous version that didn't work very well, and they put in new things, right? So we talk about things like built-in functions. A function is essentially like an app inside the programming language. So they might add functions that are valuable for people, you know, that are programming, and they might remove some that people just didn't use or they found other security problems or whatever else, right? So if you look at PHP, again, I like PHP. If you have PHP 4 code, it will most likely run fine on a PHP 8 interpreter, right? It's PHP, different versions, 4 versions down the road, your PHP 4 code should, again, more or less, depending on how complicated it is, run pretty fine on a PHP 8 interpreter. If you have PHP 8 code, again, As long as you didn't add a lot of complicated stuff, it should probably run on an older server. Again, like, but more or less. PHP 4, PHP 8, same, but slightly different. One of the big things to understand between Python 2 and Python 3 is no, these are entirely different languages. If you write Python 2 code, do not run it on a Python 3 interpreter. If you run Python 3 code, do not run it on a Python 2 interpreter. They are different languages. Apparently, there is something that you can add to your server to make Python 3 kind of sort of understand Python 2, but don't. But don't. Python 2 should be dead at this point. So anyways, if Python 2 ever comes up, it should be dead. If it's not dead, it is your job to kill it. Rewrite it in Python 3. So yeah, don't use Python 2. Python 3 is a hard fork. Python 2 was supposed to be dead as of January 1, 2020. And again, the important thing here, again, if you're in the real tech world, is all support stopped in 2020. Security updates, all of that kind of horse crap. So if you have 2 running on your server, that's a bad thing. And the final thing is do be careful. If you're like a Gen Xer trying to like retrain and you're learning Python, if you go to Amazon and they have a Python for Dummies book that only costs 99 cents, be careful what version of Python it's talking about. The reason it's 99 cents is it might be a Python 2 version. That's actually a lived experience for me. So with Raspberry Pi, around. Anyways, so when I was first learning the Raspberry Pi, those little microcomputers, right? So those microcomputers, they use Python 3 in order for you to do a lot of fancy stuff with them. I didn't realize the whole difference between Python 2 and Python 3 at the time. I went out, I got a dummies book for building projects with Raspberry Pi, and it was an entire book on how to write things with Python 2. So it basically went in the trash can. So do be careful about that. Let's see here. So it's an interpreted language, right? So whenever we talk about programming languages, we're either going to be talking about compiled programming languages or interpreted programming languages. So compiled programming languages is where you take you take all the code that you created, you run it through something called a compiler, and out the other side, more or less, essentially an executable pops out, and then you can run that directly natively on the computer. Python is not that. It's what's called an interpreted language. So interpreted languages, again, are Ruby on Rails, PHP, Python, JavaScript. Basically what this is you actually install the interpreter onto your computer or onto your device. And then when the code runs, more or less, that interpreter reads basically the program that you created and then auto-magically turns that into the output that you're looking for. So the big thing with this is that Python 3 actually has to be installed on your operating system. So basically, if you're going to be running this code, you install Python 3 onto it. You do make sure it gets updated every once in a while. And so the interpreter has to be installed onto the operating system for any of these scripts to work. If you create a Python script and you don't have a Python 3 interpreter on the computer, it's not going to do anything. So that's going to be important for you. Again, in this modern world of service-oriented architecture and infrastructure as a service, if you go out and you provision a server that for whatever damn reason doesn't have Python 3, or you do not have the privilege to install Python 3 on, you can run into a major problem. Again, think about this. You're a 19-year-old, you know, you're running and gunning, you're excited, you're going to change the world with the code that you're creating for the infrastructure for your company. You spend a month designing this amazing Python 3 administrative application. You go to run it on your servers, and the senior admin tells you to go bugger yourself. He's not going to install Python 3 onto those servers, and he doesn't give a damn how much time you spent creating that code. All of your work just went down the toilet. So if you're going to write Python code, do make sure that the interpreter is either there already or can be installed. Let's see here. Use Py. So the extension for Python code is .py. It's as the file extension. So whatever your script name is, .py. In order to run a script, you do Python 3 and the script name, basically. So if we go over here, So this is the terminal. So I want to run the hi Python script that I created. So what I do is I type Python 3 hi is the name of the script, .py for the extension. Yay! We get hello world. Yay, we did hello world. Exciting. So this is basically how you're going to run your script, whether you're going to say hello world, whether you're going to do a bunch of administrative tasks, whether you're going to turn on a web server or whatever else. This is the basic idea of how you're actually going to run that script. And then in order to get Python on all that, if you go to www.python.org, there's lots of documentation and that kind of stuff there. Let's see here. Syntax and styling. So this is fun in the Python world. So any programming language that you're going to be using, there are things called delimiters. And what a delimiter does is it basically says where is the end of a command. So again, if you use PHP or if you use SQL, structured query language, a semicolon is the end of the command. So one of the big problems you get to, especially if you're using a programming language like PHP, is you can make what is called spaghetti code really, really, really easily. And what spaghetti code means is it's code that technically works, hopefully just fine, but is impossible to read. So you can create a massive PHP application that is literally one line of code that goes on forever. So basically, every time there's an end to a command, you put a semicolon, and then you do the next command, and then you do the next command, then you do the next command. And theoretically, it could all be in just one big ass line. Or what normally happens is one big ass ugly block. So with Python, what they want you to do instead is they actually want you to use spaces and tabs for the delimiters and basically for how you define code blocks. So we're going to talk about this in a little bit. But here, what I'm doing is I'm creating a variable called myList, and I'm putting in these names for the list. And then for x in my list, so this is like a for each loop, something like PHP, we're going to print out what the x is. So when we run this, it'll go through the loop. It'll say print Bob, print Sue, print Phil, print Bobby, right? So for each item in the list, it's going to do that. So we start the code block here on the farthest left. And then every time we step in, we're actually going to step in by four space bars, spaces, space, 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 print. Then if we want to do more layering, down here, oops, oh, there we go. So for x in my list, and then we go to an if statement. If Bob is in that, then we're going to print. And so, yeah, we're going to get 30 classes of Python, so don't worry about this too much now. But basically, this is how you mark blocks of code, is by indenting in. That's how you say what the next thing is, right? So for each, if, print, that's what you're going to be doing. So there's not going to be semicolons or anything like that. But this is how Python understands where code blocks begin and end. And so it's very important that you get that kind of spacing correctly, or it is simply not going to work. Whenever you're looking at that kind of spacing, so indentation, you can either use spaces or tabs for indentation. So this is where if you ever saw a Silicon Valley show and the main guy was getting it on with this girl and they got into an argument between spaces and tabs and it all went to hell. Those are real arguments. Yeah. Welcome to our profession, where people get into knock out, drag out arguments over spaces and tabs. So, should this be spaces? Should it be spaces? Or should it be a tab? That is the question mark. Python doesn't give a damn as long as you stick with one or the other. If you decide to use tabs, then you have to use tabs. If you decide to use spaces, then you have to use spaces, right? Basically, you can't mix spaces and tabs within the same script, or it'll all go to hell. Now, I used to like tabs. If you watched my videos before, I used to like tabs. I still like tabs. I still prefer tabs, to be honest with you. Again, you do you. One of the things is though, all the systems that I work with are my systems. I own everything. If I have a problem, I swap it out. I buy a new one. What I didn't actually realize with one of these big arguments between tabs and spaces is that tabs, size of the tab, right? So if you have tabs here, these are spaces, but if you have tabs here, the size of the tab can actually be configured in each different OS. So you can go to an OS, open up this script, and the tab is this big. You can go to a different operating system, and the tab is this big, or this big, or this big, or this big, right? So again, if you have to open up code after it's been created, or if you're working with somebody else on a coding project and the tab size is whatever that damn operating system has configured, that can be a bit of a mess. The argument that they make for using spaces instead of tabs is that a space is a space is a space is a space is a space. Basically, one character block is always the exact same size. And so one of the arguments for using, again, white space or, space bars basically is simply that it will always be the exact same size. One of the nice things with this, with Python using this kind of indentation in order to create code blocks is you can do what's called code folding. So here, these are pretty small. It's not a big deal. But imagine you have a script that's like 500 lines of code. One of the things is when you have a function or when you have a loop, you can actually click on this and collapse the code. So you'll notice when we start doing bigger projects, what'll happen is I'll collapse blocks of code. And then when we're working on that particular block of code, I can simply open it up and then we can deal with that particular block of code. So that's one of the things with Python is nice is you have that ability to collapse the code. That's one thing to be thinking about. So with Python, you can use Python to write HTML, to write other programming languages, which is kind of cool. So you can use Python to write CSS and HTML and JavaScript and all those kinds of things. One of the things to think about is when you're using Python to write all that different code, that other code many times can just be an ugly ass block. It could be spaghetti code, like we talked about before. If you use the same basic styling when you write HTML, when you write JavaScript, then within that code you're having Python write, you can then collapse those blocks too. So that's kind of one of those things to consider there. Let's see here. And so, okay. So basically, when we talk about syntax, syntax is how we actually write the code, right? So what are the actual words that we have to use, right? Syntax. In order to create a list, you have the name for list equals square bracket, Bob, Sue, Phil, and Bobby. So this is all syntax. For X, so for each item in the list, print X, right? So this is syntax. You have to get the syntax right. It's like learning a different language, right? If you don't write it right, it's not going to work. If you do a for each here instead of for X or for whatever, it's just simply not going to work. That's a syntax that you're going to use. But beyond the syntax is styling, right? And so what styling is so do I use a tab here? Do I use 4 spaces here? Do I use 1 space here? Right? That is styling. Again, how does it look? If you think about a normal language, especially like English, like cursive. Cursive is a style. There is different styles. So with the English language, there are different ways you can style it depending on whatever it is that you're doing. The same thing is true with Python. And so they have this thing called PEP8. Copy PEP8. And what PEP8 is this is the actual style guide. So basically what this does is it goes through and it tries to tell you how you should write things as a good little Python coder. Now it's important to understand that as I say this, you don't have to do this. You can have code that works perfectly fine, even if you don't give a damn about styling. But one of the big things to remember as a technology professional is it's not simply about what you can do, but when you hand the project over to somebody else, are they going to know what the hell you're talking about, right? And so like with here, they talk about like indents, so correct, aligned with opening delimiter, add 4 spaces. They talk about the different ways you can do it, or down here, wrong. So these are not the ways that you should write that particular code. No extra indentations. They talk about this. Tabs or spaces. So they talk about tabs and spaces here. Maximum length of characters, of lines. Basically, they just go through here and they try to show you how it should be styled. So like here, wrong. Operators sit far away from their operands. So operators are plus, minus, times, divide. So let's say income. So income is gross wages plus, taxable interest plus, dividends minus, qualified minus, IRA deduction minus. So what they say, this is wrong. So this will work perfectly. You run this code, it should work perfectly. What they say from a styling perspective is that this is how you should do it. Gross wages plus, in the beginning, taxable interest plus this minus this minus this. So this is the style that you're supposed to use. This is a style that you're not supposed to use. And so it's one of those things just to take a look at. Again, when you're writing things like Python code, when you're doing anything in technology, one of the things you have to think about is who are you doing it for? If you're simply doing it for yourself, if you're creating some kind of plant watering application at your house, then things like styling don't matter. Again, if you're trying to get a job, if you're trying to move ahead in your career, things like styling do matter, right? If people have to go behind you and they know that you wrote the code and they groan, that's probably not going to be good for your career. So like with this styling stuff, that's something that you have to think about. The other thing with styling too is, again, this is the Pepe standards. It is actually the Python standard for styling. That does not mean that your organization uses this particular standard though. So one of the things to think about, again, especially if you're young, it's not about being right. It's about getting the job done. If your company uses a certain standard for styling, do whatever your company uses. Keep that in mind. Let's see here. Modules. So modules are a bit of a pain in the butt as far as Python is concerned until you get to use them, right? So if you're used to using most programming languages, they have what are called built-in functions. So if you want a random number, you just call the rand function. If you want the time, you just call the time function. If you want to send email, with PHP, you just run the mail function and it's all right there. You just type it out. One of the interesting things in the Python world is that you actually have to import the functions first. You do not get access to the functions until you import it. Very, very few pieces of the functionality simply exist when you initially create your Python script. Many times you have to import it. So if you look at this, so from random, import randint. So random is a module. So a module basically has a whole bunch of different functions that are contained under it. Generally, they do the same type of stuff. If you need random text, if you need a random int, if you need a random float, there will be those kinds of functions within the random module. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying from the random module, import the randint function. So this is one way that I can import a function into my Python script. If we come down here, what we see here is we now can simply call that randint function. So since we explicitly imported the randint function, we can use the randint function here, and basically with this, we want a random integer, a whole number between 0 to 10. So we can simply call that. One of the other things you can do, though, is you can simply import the entire module. So when you import the entire module, as opposed to import all of the functions, sort of, kind of, it's Python. You'll find out in the future. It's supposed to. It doesn't always do it. Anyways, if you import the entire module, that's supposed to import all the functions. But you have not explicitly stated which function you're importing. And so that's where we come down here. So since we imported the module, the entire module, we now say, okay, from the time module that we want imported, we then want to use the sleep function that's in that module, and sleep just pauses something for 2 seconds. So basically right here, this is a very simple script. Number equals random integer between 0 to 10. Print that on the screen, wait for 2 seconds, do it again, right? So if I do this, so 8, 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, 7, right? So basically, give me a random number between 0 to 10, gives me 8, sleeps for 2 seconds, gives me 5, sleeps for 2 seconds, and then gives me 7. So the important thing to remember here is you are going to have to keep track of this, especially once you start creating 500-line code scripts. This can turn into a real pain in the butt, and it's just something to remember. One of the big things with this that you have to be thinking about is something called namespace. So basically what namespace means is everything in your script has to be uniquely identifiable, or functions has to be uniquely identifiable by their name, right? So, right, when I import rand int, right, and I call rand int, the Python script knows what the ever-loving hell I'm talking about. When I import time, it knows what I'm talking about. One of the big problems right now, really in the tech world, is the preponderance of open source crap. Now, I'm not anti-open source. I am anti a lot of the crap that's out there in the open source world, right? And so when you start creating projects, you're most likely going to be installing modules or frameworks, we'll talk about those later, that somebody else has created. One of the problems that you can run into is what happens if one module uses a specific function name and another module uses the exact same function name, and then you import that into your script, and then your script doesn't know which thing to actually use. It's going to fail out and it's going to be miserable. So one of the reasons why you want to do like from random import rand int, this kind of thing, is trying to keep the namespace clean, because if you don't do that, you can run into some problems. Again, when we do more classes, we'll talk about that more. Let's see here. Yeah, try to only import the functions that you require. So you can do import module versus import module all. So you can also do from time import all. So I'm just going to bring this up here. Again, this is one of those weird Python things. So this import time. Import time is supposed to import all functions from the time module into your script so that you can use them. For some reason, that doesn't actually always import all of the modules or all the functions that you're going to need. So sometimes you have to do from time import all, and this will explicitly import all of all the functions that you need. That's a weird thing. Again, it comes up every once in a while where you'll do a from, import time, and then you think you've got all of the functions that you require. Sometimes you have to do that import all. Again, we'll get into that in other classes, but it comes up just kind of so you've seen that before. Frameworks then. So basically we got the modules, right? So the modules gives us random numbers, time, a whole bunch of crap. Then you've got full-fledged frameworks. So one of the things you'll hear about with Python is that you can do almost anything with Python. Right? You can create back-end scripts with Python. You can create full GUI desktop applications with Python. You can create web applications with Python. You can theoretically create mobile, iOS and Android applications with Python. One of the things that they'll get a little confusing, though, is that yes, you do that with Python, but in order to get that functionality, you have to import what are called frameworks. And so frameworks are basically large libraries that are designed to complete basically a specific task. So you may have heard of. So what tkinter does is this is a framework that allows you to build interfaces for the desktop. So you can actually build desktop applications with Python. But it's Python with tkinter allows you to create those desktop applications. One of the big things with frameworks too, again, it goes back to, do you have control over the operating systems that you're interacting with? Not only does Python have to be installed on that operating system, but tkinter also has to be installed onto that operating system. And so whether it is installed, whether you can install it, that becomes its own deal. That's a big thing with the web app frameworks. So Django is a really cool web app framework. Bottle is a micro web app framework. We're going to use that a lot because it's really simple. And Flask. And so basically, these web app frameworks allow you to create web applications. You want to create the next Instagram. So yeah, Instagram, at least originally, was actually created using Django. One of the things to realize with this is this allows you to create web applications relatively easily. But if you're going to be using IaaS, infrastructure as a service, one of the things that you have to ask is whether you can install these frameworks onto those platforms, right? Do those platforms allow you to run Python script to begin with? And then beyond that, are you going to be able to install these particular frameworks? That's going to be a big question. If you spend 6 months building a web application with Django, and then you go to deploy it wherever you think you're going to deploy it, and they do not basically allow that, then you have a whole bunch of code that essentially is worthless to you. So that's something to think about. And then we have other frameworks like OpenCV. So OpenCV is actually computer vision. So you can use Python to have your computer see the world, and then based off of what it sees, you can then fire off, events to happen. That is something called OpenCV. We'll also have classes on that. And again, that is another framework. One of the big things to realize with frameworks, again, when I was originally learning Python, it was like, okay, the hard thing will be Python, and then I'll just take a couple of minutes to learn the framework. I will warn you, the frameworks many times are far more difficult to learn than Python. Python is a relatively simple language. You should be able to teach yourself Python in about a week, just Python itself, because Python doesn't do a whole hell of a lot. Where it becomes powerful is with the frameworks and the other things. And these frameworks can be complete bastards to learn. So just realize that. You're like, oh, I know Python. I'll just learn this framework over the weekend. Might want to give yourself a wee bit more time to do that. Yep. Let's see here. Then we go down. Virtual environments. So this is something you're going to run into. So with a lot of our classes, I'm probably not going to deal with virtual environments a lot. Again, from an educational standpoint, I try to make things as simple as possible, not as complicated as possible. But what virtual environments allow you to do is allows you to create a container for all of those modules and frameworks for your particular project. So let's say you're designing a project, especially if that project is going to be shipped out, the end product is going to be shipped off to somebody else. It allows you to basically create a container with all of the modules or frameworks that you specifically need for that particular project, right? And the cool part is you can then basically just ship that. You can zip that up as an entire file and just send that to somebody else, right? So instead of having all of the modules directly and then trying to figure out which ones you need, you can create what's called a virtual environment. Again, you can kind of containerize the thing. Works really well. Again, I don't like getting into it, especially with the introductory classes, because it gets people confused. But that's basically what it is. Can be very useful in the real world for production environments if you have scripts running on the exact same server. So why you would use this in the real world is, one, you're developing these applications and then you're shipping them off to somebody else to deploy. That's useful. And then also, if you're running scripts on a server, and for some reason you need different versions of the exact same module, right? So again, especially in the open source world, right? You go out there and your application that you designed works really good with module version 2.0. And then Bob over here creates their own thing and it works really well with version 3.0. Right? So what are you going to do? Because if you upgrade to 3.0, your app's going to break. And if you don't upgrade to 3.0, his app's going to break. Well, what you can do is you can have a virtual environment. This virtual environment is using version 2.0. This virtual environment is using 3.0, and everybody's relatively happy. One of the things to be thinking about is if you actually go to deploy scripts out in the real world, so you go to something like DigitalOcean and you're going to deploy your Python script, especially if you're doing something like Django or Flask or Bottle, you've created a web application. Most of their instructions are going to be based around deploying from a virtual environment. So there's a whole bunch of configuration files that you have to write out. And so those configuration files that they give you as an example, they're going to be based around a virtual environment. So if you are planning to deploy somewhere else, again, we'll do a whole class on virtual environments, but kind of so you have an idea of what's going on. Let's see here, pip. Package manager. So when we talk about these frameworks or when we talk about these modules, basically how we're able to install them or uninstall them or see what's there is through the package manager. I forget what it stands for. Anyways, there's pip or pip3. Pip is generally for Python 2. So basically, if you're going to use pip to install a module or a framework on your computer, you're generally going to be using pip3. You can use this command, pip3 list, to list what modules you actually have currently installed. Going to do pip3 list. And there we go. So this shows me. So basically, again, if you've created a script, especially if you're going to a new computer, for some reason the script isn't firing off properly, you can use this pip3 list to see what either that bottle is installed on here. I guess it's not. Oh no, bottle's installed on there. I've got too many computers. Anyways, this will either show you what frameworks are installed, or it will show you what modules are installed. So Ollama. So Ollama is that AI framework. So we have the Ollama framework installed. We have request. So the request module allows you to go out to a website and pull data down. So we have the request module installed. And so if your code isn't running the way you think it should, you can come here and you can take a look and see which modules or frameworks are actually installed on this particular computer. Let's see here. When you're doing install, so one of the commands you can use to install packages is pip3 install package. That's one way to do it. Be careful. Be careful. Be careful about being lazy with Python. Pip3 install package is very different than sudo pip3 install package. So basically, when you run pip3 install package, it is going to install the package on the computer for your user to use. Fine. If you use sudo pip3 install package, basically what this is going to do is it's going to install the package, but only for the sudo, basically for the super user of the system. So if you're lazy like me sometimes as an administrator, and you just like to type sudo a lot, just so you don't have to retype commands every once in a while. If you start installing packages using sudo, when you go to call your scripts in a non-sudo environment, they simply are not going to function. Right? So if you install using sudo, then you're going to have to run the script as sudo python 3, whatever the script name is. So whenever you're going to install, try not to use sudo. Just there are reasons to do it every once in a while, but generally don't do that. When you're installing the packages, the main way to install packages, how you're supposed to do it, is Python 3 space -m pip install package. You'll notice it's pip. Python 3 space -m pip install whatever the package name is. And what that's going to do is that is going to install the package into the environment that you are using. One of the weird things with Python is you can have multiple versions of Python on your computer. And so you can do pip3, it is pip3 install package, but sometimes that might dump the package into the wrong place and you can get a lot of screwy problems. So you can do this. You can do this. And 99.5% of the time, this is going to be fine. You're going to have zero issues. 0.5% of the time, everything's going to go to hell. All right. So anyways, for whatever reason, anything that's Python, they do things how they do it. This is a much better way to make sure it's being installed into the proper locations. Let's see here. Python and your operating system. So this is going to be a big thing, especially if you guys are following along at home, and girls, and whoever else. Right. So Python is an application, just like QuickBooks, just like Word, just like Angry Birds. Python is an application. That application gets installed onto your operating system. Here's the thing, boys and girls. Windows sucks. Windows sucks. I hate Windows. I hate Windows so much. Because when you go to write these scripts, when you go to run these scripts, when you go to install things like packages and all that kind of stuff, how your operating system is configured is going to affect how your scripts run, right? What permissions? So as a user on your system, what permission do you have to do whatever it is that you want to do? Again, what weird ass security software do you have on your computer that's going to stop stuff from working, right? All that thing is there. With frameworks, one of the things to think about with frameworks, many times when you install a framework, it'll actually install other software onto your computer. And so again, if you have McAfee antivirus or God knows what on your computer, you can run into a lot of weird problems. Again, when I started doing more robot projects, so I was gonna get back in the swing of things with Windows. Again, I got my MCSE back in 2000. I used to be a Windows fanboy until Windows 8 came out. And so since I was doing robot projects, I was gonna try to start using Windows more just to get back in the swing of things. And oh my God, it sucked. It was so horrible. It was so painful. Oh, I had to do so much troubleshooting just to get the simplest garbage to work properly. And again, it was things like permissions and registry. Yeah, it was a freaking disaster. So, anyways, your operating system, this kind of stuff is going to matter. And then the other thing too is to be thinking about with OS commands. Um, so one of the cool things you can do, again, there's something called the OS module that you can use with Python, and that allows you to interact with the operating system. And so not only can you send commands to the operating system, but you can send a command and you can read the response that comes back. Like I ran into this problem between Mac and Ubuntu. So when I was doing normal Silicon Dojo, again, we did projects. So one of the things I did, I like doing is just simple network monitoring apps. It's a good way to get people used to building something that's kind of relevant in the real world. Anyways, so I was on my Mac and I was writing up this code and basically looped through. It continuously pinged certain websites to see if they were up, and then based off the response, it would do something. Anyways, and again, it was really simple, really, really simple. I wasn't using frameworks, I wasn't using any of that. So I didn't verify the code worked on my Ubuntu system before I went into class. So in class, we always use Ubuntu. We standardize in Ubuntu because it works really well. But I was at home, I was using my Mac. Who the hell cares, right? All I wanted to see is if I ping and I get a response back and I get like one packet received, basically, if one packet's received in response, say site is up, else say site is down, right? Seems pretty simple, so I did that on my thing. I put it onto my Ubuntu system like 10 minutes before class was going to begin. And again, you just go through and verify everything's working properly. Verify, verify, verify. And I went to verify and it just failed. And it just failed. And it just failed. I'm like, what the fuck? How am I failing to this? How? I mean, it's like 10 lines of code. It's like 10, maybe 15 lines of code. All it's doing is sending a ping command to the operating system, reading back from the ping command, and spitting out a result. The issue that I found out was, don't quote me on this, but it was like the Mac operating system, when a ping is successful, you get one packets received. When Ubuntu pings and the ping is successful, you get one received. So when I wrote the code, it was based off of one packets received, which Ubuntu is never going to get because that is not the standard response that Ubuntu provides. And so that's one of the things to be thinking about, again, like with your operating system, like very basic things, like when you go to ping, like one of the things that can lock you up with either Linux or Mac is when you do the ping command, it continuously pings until you manually tell it to stop. So you either code in how many pings are supposed to occur, or it keeps pinging until you do Control C and you stop it. So if you do ping space -C1 domain name IP address, it will ping for the count of one, and then it'll stop. You get that result back, and you can parse it. You can do something with it. If you're dealing with Windows, right? It pings 4 times and then stops, or at least it did. I think it still does. That's just how that operating system is designed. So if you wrote a script to ping in Windows and you didn't give it a count, it may be slower overall than it would be on Linux or Ubuntu, but it would still function. You would not lock up your script if you forgot to give it a count. It would ping 4 times, and then you could read the results. Whereas in the Linux or in the Mac or the Ubuntu world, it will continuously ping, and since it's within a script, there is no way for you to manually stop it in the script, and so your script will lock up and go to hell. So that's one of the things we think about with Python and the underlying operating system. And again, that's where understanding how your operating system works is going to be as important as all the other programming languages and things. Let's see here, data types. So yeah, Python is interesting with the data types. This is either really good or really damn stupid. So when we talk about data types, most programming languages are typed languages. What a type means is you tell the language basically what kind of data you're providing it. So when we talk about an int is a whole number. 1, 112, 512, that's an int. A float is a number with a decimal point. 25.25, 512.10, right? A decimal is also a decimal type number. I forget if either a float or decimal gets more precise. Again, that's an important thing to realize, right? Floats and decimals can be more precise. There's bools. Bools are either true or false. On or off, 1 or 0, basically. You have strings. Strings are text. Chars are characters. Depending on what programming language you're using, there can be just a tremendous number of these different data types. And basically, the reason that you use data types in programming languages is so if the wrong data type gets inputted into your script, basically you want what's called a hard fail. So one of the problems you can get into, like if your program basically takes data in and stores it somewhere into something like a database, one of the problems you can run into is like, what if you're doing sales? Again, let's say you're doing an invoicing system. So invoice 1, the total amount was $112. Invoice 2, the total amount was $50. Invoice 4, the total amount was Bob. What? How do you add or average when Bob is a number in the numbers, right? That's a problem. So if you have a data type, when you have data types, basically what it says is that it simply will not accept anything other than the data type it's looking for. So if you have a column of numbers, only numbers will be in there, right? If something happens before the data gets there, the program will fail out. So you'll get a hard failure. And so that's one of the reasons that you want data types to make sure what's going on. So in the Python world, the interesting thing is that basically they auto data type. So generally, where is it? Oh, I don't have it up. Let's see here, file, open, type. There we go. So basically, it auto creates the data type. So I'm going to create a variable here. So this is creating a variable, and this is assigning the value to the variable. So we're going to create a variable called name. The value is going to be Bob. We're going to create a variable named age. The value is going to be 44. We're going to create a variable named weight. It is going to equal 100.5. There is a function called type, and this is something that you'll probably get very used to, where basically with type, what you do is you can ask Python what the hell data type that damn thing is, especially if things are failing. So we do print type name, type age, type weight. Basically, it will give us those types. Don't worry about the bottom, right? So basically, what we can see here is name is a class of string, age is a class of int, weight is a class of float. So basically, so we know what data type we're dealing with. You can use a different function, str, and that type of thing, to turn one data type into a different data type. We'll get into that later. So one of the important things to realize is even though you're not declaring the data type in Python, Python is declaring it for you. And yes, you can have some really fun times when it declares your data type in a way that you were not expecting. Um, so basically, that's what we're talking about with data types. And then we have methods. And so basically what methods are ways of modifying the variable value that's come in, right? So basically here, we can change the data type. So I could change a number or a float into a string. So if I do str and then the variable name, that will turn that variable into a string data type. If I do int, it will turn that variable into an int data type if it's able to. So you can do this with if you're trying to strip out the zero, everything past the decimal point in a number. So let's say you have ages, and somebody's age is 12 and a half, and 11 and 3/4, and 10 and I don't know, 90% or whatever. By doing int, basically it will simply remove, because an int is a whole number. So when you turn it into an int, it removes everything past the decimal point, which again, be very, very careful about. If you're just trying to get an idea of the ages of your students, doing that kind of thing is great. If you have a system that's calculating tax, don't do that. Again, one of the reasons it's important to understand the different data types. Again, you can modify variable values, upper with method. So upper turns all the letters in a variable value into uppercase, lower turns them to lowercase. So with here, so we have name equals Bob. We can print out name.upper or name.title. When we do that, we can see, so Bob was originally all lowercase. Here, Bob is now all uppercase, or here title, the first letter is uppercase, everything else is lowercase. And so this is one of the ways that you can clean up data. So if you're going to be taking data and you're taking it from like an input form and dumping it into a database, one of the things you can do is before you dump it in the database, you can clean it up, right, to whatever your style is. Do you want everything to be lowercase? Do you want everything to be uppercase? Again, so you don't have a lot of garbage sitting in your database or your file store. Then beyond that, whenever you're dealing with anything in the Python world, everything in Python is considered an object. How do I explain what that means? I'm not really sure. Everything's an object. Just accept it. I don't know. Go read a book. It's a hard part with like new people. You're like, it's all an object. You're like, great, what does that mean? It's an object. Anyways, so when you get data back from things, so let's say you're reading from a file or you're getting a response from an API, that is going to come back as an object. It's a thing. It's a data type. I don't know how to explain it. Anyways, the problem is if you just print the variable value as that object that comes back, you're going to get this weird thing that's not going to make a damn bit of sense because it's an object. So there's a method of read. So if you go call to a file, you take all the text in the file, you bring it back to the variable value, you use .read, and then it will read all the text in that object. And now that text will be the variable value so that you can do something with it. .json, that's a different method, that turns the response that came back into a JSON data type. We'll talk about that in a little bit. That allows you to go through and basically be able to request information at certain indexes. So basically, like if you use requests and you go out to a website and you bring back the information, and then you're like, print the information I got back from this website. If you don't use .json, you're just gonna get this weird object notation thing, and you're like, well, that's useless. So all you got to do is you got to do print the variable name .json, and then you'll get a nice, pretty JSON response. Let's see here. Sets, list, dictionary, and tuples. So this is going to be a confusing one if you come from a lot of different, any other programming languages. So in most programming languages, arrays are built in. So what an array is a variable that has numerous values, right? So we talk about indexes. At index 0 is this value, at index 1 is this value, at index 2 is this value, so on and so forth. So again, you're using PHP, whatever, arrays are built in. I didn't realize this until I started learning Python, but arrays are actually very special things. There's all kinds of fancy math apparently you can do with arrays. And so the curious thing with Python is arrays are not actually built in. You actually have to use a different module to really be able to use arrays to give you all of the fancy math stuff that most of you are probably not going to need at the end of the day. What Python has built in instead of arrays are sets. So you can have a list, you can have a dictionary, you can have a tuple, and you can have a set. Basically, these sets generally give you the functionality that you're going to be looking for out of arrays. Again, the array actually gives you very powerful mathematical things that you can do. And most of the time, you're not doing very powerful math. You're just sorting names and that kind of stuff. And basically what I mean by that is we go here and I think a list, right? Oops. So like this is a list. So this is a list. So you do a square bracket, and then in it I have names. So Bob, comma Sue, comma Phil, comma Bobby. So single quotation marks, and anything in there is a string that's contained within the list. In a list, all the index are numbered indexes. So Bob is at index 0, Sue is at index 1, Phil is at index 2, and Bobby is at index 3. Whenever you're dealing with indexes, they always start at 0. Start at 0. Just how computer stuff works. Sometimes it starts at 1, sometimes it starts at 0. Why? Because we are a passive-aggressive profession. That's just how it is. We have down here, we have a dictionary. So a dictionary is kind of like a named key array if you're used to other programming languages. So the name of the key is name, and the value is Frank. The name of the key is age, and the value is 13. The name of the key is size, and the value is large. So basically, a dictionary allows you to create something that actually has a named index value. When you're doing a dictionary, though, you do squiggly brackets and put it all in there. So if we run this, okay, so basically what we have going on here is, so I have my list, Bob, Sue, Phil, and Bobby, 4x in my list. So for each item in my list, I'm going to print out that item name. So Bob, Sue, Phil, Bobby. If we come down here, this says 4x in my list. If Bob in X, so basically if this is in the X, print that. And so basically that's what you're going to get here. So you're going to get Bobby and Bob. So Bob is inside Bobby, and Bob is obviously inside Bob. So those two are going to print out. We're going to go here. We have the dictionary. So with this, I can say print my dictionary and the name of the key, right? I want the name, the person's name from this my dictionary, and that will simply print out Frank. So if I want this specific value, that's how I can get it. And then if we come here, what this does is it says 4 key values. So the key and the value in my dictionary dot items method. So basically grabs the method, the items. What this does is this is something called concatenation. We'll talk about this in other classes. It's called an F string. F, single quotation mark. I want the key value equals the value, close single quotation mark. And that's where we get name equals Frank, age equals 13, size equals large. So name equals Frank, age equals 13, size equals large. And that's a list in a dictionary for you. Let's see here. The sets can be nested. We'll deal with that later. You can have dictionaries inside lists, inside dictionaries, inside lists. That's its own deal. Let's see here. A list has indexed values that can be sorted. So if you want to sort the names, right? So if you want to alphabetically sort Bob, Sue, whatever, you can do that in a list. Dictionary, named key index, that can be sorted. So that can also be sorted. Tuple, it's like a list, but it's immutable. So you're going to deal with tuples a lot of times whenever you're dealing with math problems, especially with things like OpenCV. So let's say you're getting the XY value. So let's say you have a computer and it's seeing the world and it sees an object at an XY value. Well, here's the thing. You don't want to sort XY values. Right? Basically, X is at index 0 and Y is at index 1. So if you want the X value, you go to 0 index. And if you want the Y value, you go to 1 index, right? And you might have height and you might have width. Basically, with a tuple, if you're trying to transmit very specific data, right? Again, what's the X, what's the Y, what's the height, what's the width, and other kinds of information. Well, imagine if you had a really stupid coder that for some reason sorted that or had the ability to sort that. Now all of a sudden it sorts those numbers into alphabetical order or whatever else, chronological order, and yeah, that's worthless, right? Because you just sort it, right? You always want these values to be at a specific index. So that's why you use a tuple. Sets are interesting. They're unordered, unchangeable, no duplicates. So with a list, you can have Sue 5 times. You can have 5 Sues in a list, right? In a dictionary, you can have 5 Sues in a dictionary. With a set, you can't have any duplicates. If you if you have Sue and you try to add another Sue, basically that just drops off. You already have a Sue. You already have a Sue. You only get one. It's unordered. It's unchangeable. It's its own weird ass little world. So anyways, that's going to be one of those interesting things we'll deal with in other classes. Most of the time, it's not a big deal. It does get a little wonky every once in a while. So JSON and APIs. So this is going to be the holy grail. This is going to be like, this is what makes, this is what makes Python really cool. And so what JSON is generally, this is the standard response that you're going to be getting from APIs. Again, from Twilio, from whatever, right? So you're gonna make a call out to an API, and the response that you're gonna get back is going to look a lot like this, right? And this is a JSON response. If we go over, we take a look at the API.py. Basically, this is what we're dealing with. Right, so there are databases out there that contain information about your IP address, right? So whenever IP addresses are sold, they're sold in blocks, generally to known organizations, and those organizations put into databases a whole bunch of information about those IP addresses, where they are geographically, who owns that particular IP address, a whole bunch of that stuff is just sitting there in a nice little database. And so you can query an API and say, for this particular IP address, give me some information. So if we go to, oh, wait a minute, where's my, there we go. So we go to IP. So there's this company, IP geolocation API, fast, accurate, reliable, free for non-commercial use, no API key, blah, 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 blah. So basically, this can give you information about whatever IP address you submit to it. And so if we come here, what we're doing is the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to import the requests module. So the request module allows us to go out to websites, pull information in. So we're going to say the result. So result equals request.get, and we're going to go to http ip-api.com JSON, and then we're going to feed it that IP address. So the IP address that we have, this is just kind of a default thing that they have. We're just going to feed it. And then we're going to say dot JSON. So whenever you see this, just so you know, again, with that whole white space and indentation, this is called word wrap. So like if I shrink this down, you'll see this is all on one line. If I'm doing these projects and you see things like start doing that, if you don't actually see an indent, Basically, all this is word wrap, where it wraps it to the next line, so you don't get too confused there. So basically what this does is it says, use the request module, use the get function, the request module, to go to this IP address and pull back the object. But again, as I've said before, now you've got an object. If you say print the value of result, and you don't do that, you're just going to get something ugly that you're not going to want. So we're going to use the JSON method to turn that object into a JSON value. And so we can then print out the result. So we can print out all the JSON that we're getting back. And then here what we can do is we can print out the value at a particular index. So we're going to simply print city on the screen, and we're going to say, what is the city for that particular IP address? So if I run this, okay, so this is the overall response. Status is success, country is Canada, country code is CA, region is Quebec, region name is Quebec, city is Montreal, zip code, latitude, longitude, time zone. Get a lot of interesting information there. And then basically I can pull out from that JSON the very specific information that I want. So a lot of times when we do things like weather, we need weather information, I might pull the latitude or longitude. For this, just to show you, I just simply want the city. So I print result at the index of city. It goes through here. I don't know where the hell the index of city is. Index of city is there. So that gives us Montreal. And so that's going to print out Montreal for us. So this is where we can make that API call, bring back the JSON response, and then pull out the specific information that we care about. And again, this right here really is what makes Python really, really cool. Let's see here. Then we got the Python shell. Yeah. If you wind up in the Python shell, just exit. Remember exit. Remember exit. So again, when you get into the real technology world, almost everything has a shell. Like you're used to using a different way to interface whatever it is you're dealing with, but generally they have shells, right? Your database engine has a shell that you can interact with. Python actually has a shell. So if we go here, and let's say, I type in Python 3, and this is what happens in the real world. You're like, okay, Python 3, and then you start trying to figure out the script name. And then you forget to actually put the damn script name in, and you hit enter, you are going to get this response. And when you see arrow, 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 what this means is you are in the Python shell. You are not in the Linux shell. You're not in the Mac OS shell. You're not in any other shell. You are in the Python shell. So if I'm like, oh crap, fuck. Oh yeah, what was the name of that script? Let me do ls. And then you're gonna start getting responses like this. And then you're gonna get scared very quickly. Because what do you mean ls doesn't work? But because you're in the Python shell. So we talk about Python shell. So what I can do here is, and you'll see this sometimes. So some people will give you instructions where you actually go into the Python shell to do things. But like here, I can do this. I can say name equal, or I can say, let's see here, message equals hello class, right? So I'm in the shell. So I create a variable called message, and I give it a value of hello class. I hit enter. And now I have a variable with this value, but I just simply get this next line. So from here, what I can do is I can say print message, right? So print the value of message, and that will then print hello class out onto the screen. So if you're really smart and you really, really, really know what the hell you're doing, theoretically, you can go into the Python shell and start doing some sophisticated administrative tasks, right? So if you were going to go in and you were going to clean up, the data store, maybe move files from one place to another, do things like that, theoretically, you could use the Python shell in order to do that, though it's an ugly ass way of doing it. I would not recommend that, but you can. So this is the Python shell. What you should really do when you get to the Python shell is you should type exit, open parentheses, close parentheses, and hit enter, and get the ever-loving hell out of the Python shell. That exists. So this is one of those things you are going, I guarantee you are going to run into. Let's see here. And then the IDE, right? The IDE. So when we talk about IDEs, these are called integrated development environments. So everything that I've been showing you today this is something called VS Code. And again, it's amazing. Never say that Microsoft doesn't do something good. Every once in a while, they do something fantastic. Almost every professional coder that I know at this point in time uses VS Code. Whether they code in COBOL or Node or C, almost everybody I know uses VS Code at this point in time. Basically, what VS Code does, or any IDE does, is it gives you an environment so that you can write the code, and it gives you a whole bunch of other tools. All right, so if I go over here and I click on this extension thing, these are all kinds of weird ass extensions that I've added into my VS Code environment to allow me to do work easier. Right. So one of the things that you're going to do today, if you stick around for it, is installing the Python language support. So basically with this, also from Microsoft, so this is an extension that you can install, and then basically with this, VS Code understands Python so that when you start typing things out, it gives you these nice colors and things, and also shows you if there's a problem. All right, so if I do time, let's say I do that, see how I get that little squiggly line? So it's telling me there is some type of issue here. And this is basically what an IDE is. Again, there are a lot of IDEs. Back in the day, again, back when I was programming, 2010 or whatever, there's just a number of them, right? There used to be NetBeans. What was it? Anyways, there used to be a lot. Nowadays, it seems like most people are on VS Code. The nice thing about VS Code is with this, you can write for, again, anything, COBOL, C#, whatever else. There are specific Python IDEs out there that might be a little bit better in specific situations. One of the things that you have to be thinking about, again, especially if you want a job, is that you want your skill set to be standardized on what most likely your employer is going to be looking for, right? So if you find some other IDE out there that you like, but nobody who's hiring uses that IDE, you're going to be getting a lot of experience in an environment nobody else uses. Again, the reason that I like using VS Code, especially for classes, is because it makes it a lot easier for me to go behind students and try to see where the hell their problems are. Again, somebody asked before, again, can I use my own IDE? You can use your own IDE. Whether I can support you on that IDE is going to be a whole different question. And I think that is basically the class for today. So past this, so the hands-on, what we're going to need to do. So if you want to continue with this class, you want to go into the future, 47 of you want to learn how functions and if-else statements and all that kind of stuff work, you're going to need VS Code, and you're going to need Python installed onto your computer. So the first thing that I'm going to want you guys to do today, this is where you wake up, are you awake? I want you to install Python 3 onto your computer. If you are using Ubuntu, you can do apt install Python 3, and that will install Python 3 for you relatively easily. If you are not, then you go to python.org, really difficult. You then go to downloads, and it should give you the default for whatever operating system it's reading that you have. And then from here, you can download Python 3.12.4. It'll give you a whole installation routine, and then you install it. So you go to python.org, you go to downloads, you want to install Python. Past that, then what I want you to do is I want you to install VS Code. So you can simply do a search for VS Code. And so Visual Studio Code, VS Code, and you click on that. And then you click, it should read what your operating system is, and you can download it and you can install it. If you're using Ubuntu, you can go into the app, the little app store that they have, and you search for code. I do believe it is. You search for CODE, so you can do code, and then they should give you an option for VS Code, and then you install that. Once you've done that, open up VS Code. And once you've opened up VS Code, you're going to get this recommended thing. So this is installed, right? So these are all the extensions that are installed. So when you open it up, you're going to see these recommended. So in the recommended, it's going to be Python. So basically what you need to do is you need to click on that, and then there'll be an install button there, and you install it. And then from there, you can do print, hello world. Probably should have written all this down. And this says hello world. Okay, so python.org install, VS Code install, extension install, create a new document in VS Code, write this, save it as hi.py, and then run it. Really should have written all this down much better. But anyways, see if you all can do that. If you want to do that, this is the time. This is the time where you can raise your hand. So if you have a question, you can raise your hand. I just have to figure out how to see that you're raising your hand. So let me be stupid for a moment as you guys install Python and VS Code and try to see. I was looking at it before. There's invites, chat. There's 99 chat messages. 18 isn't bad. Yeah, I can't really read the chat. I'm raising my hand just so you can test verify. You're Arbor. Yes, I see Arbor. Okay, so if, let's see here. I can, yeah, okay. So yes, you are. Oh, that's what I was going to do. Hold on one second. Copy invite code. Oh, fuck. All right, I'm gonna have to figure out that next time. I figured out a problem. That way. Let's see here. How do I see whether you're raising your hands? Close that. Okay, Jock, asked on mute. Jock.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. What's going on?
So I already have Visual Studio already installed I was working trying to learn Unity. So how can I install Python on VS Code or Visual Studio already, or is that the same thing, or is it, I'm trying to install something different?
Yeah, so okay, so the thing to see if you have Python installed on your computer, go to whatever terminal you have. You can type in Python 3 space hyphen version, and this will tell you if you have Python installed on your computer.
Okay, I'm gonna try that first.
Yep. Oh, don't remute yourself because I have to ask you to unmute. Once you remute yourself, you're not able to unmute yourself until I tell you to unmute yourself. So, still do have to figure out how do I host tools. Got raised hands. Oh, your hand went down. Does that mean you're good?
So I went in terminal, I typed in Python 3 and it says Python 3.12.4, a whole bunch of numbers, Clang, whatever, on Darwin, and type help, copyright, credits on license for more information. And I'm in the shell. It says, so now I'm in the Python shell.
Oh, you're in the Python shell. Yeah, no, you needed that version. Yeah, okay. So exit. So EXIT, open, close, parentheses. So yeah, sounds like you have Python on your computer.
Okay.
Um, so then for VS Code, this isn't so much that you're installing, this isn't installing Python on your computer, it's IntelliSense and debugging and that kind of stuff. So basically, on VS Code, you should have, like I say, and under recommendations, it should be here to the left. If it's not, you can go up here to search and simply you should be able to type in Python. And it should give you all the Python extensions. So if you search for Python, you should get that. Click on that and then install.
Really. Um, yeah, it's not coming up. See if I can, maybe because I'm already in a environment already, I'm guessing. So I probably need to go to, so I see here is like Visual Studio. I have file, edit, new, view, search, get, project, build, debug, tools, windows, and help.
Yeah,
Maybe.
so yeah, if you're here, so do you have this, so do you have this extension thing here?
Nope.
Fuck, you don't have extension thing on the left-hand side?
No, I'm trying to see how I can get back to that.
Because yeah, all of this is just built in. I don't know. Because yeah, you should like if you want a new file or Explorer, you can click on that. If you want to search, you can click on that. This is just supposed to be a menu thing on the just the left-hand side.
Should I try to close this version I have already? And
Yeah, yeah. Are you on Windows?
now I'm using a Mac.
You're using a Mac. And you're sure you don't have this? I
Not
thought
the
so.
on the side. Again, I've been using Visual Studio for a Unity project before. That's why I'm thinking like maybe I should close that first and then open up a new one and see if it pops up.
Yeah, sure. When in doubt, reboot, as they say. Sure. Or don't reboot, but yeah, redo the yeah. Yeah, the other thing you might be able to do is if you go to view, there is an extensions here. So maybe that'll give you it. Okay, you work on that. I got a couple other hands. Let me deal with this. Let's see here. Amin Mohammed. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. 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 I'm
No,
doing great.
that's
I'm
not
doing great.
working.
I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
We're gonna mute you. Let's try that again. Unmute. Ahmed, you back to you.
Doing great. Doing great. Doing great. Doing great. Doing great.
That can happen.
Doing great. Doing great. Doing great.
Okay,
Doing great.
we're just gonna mute you. I have no idea what the hell that's about. So here, I'm gonna go to Jonathan, then we'll come back to Ahmed in a minute. Jonathan, yeah.
Hi.
Hey,
Does it work?
yeah, you're working.
Yeah.
You're working.
Oh, thanks. I am a noob, so I tried this thing. I opened my terminal to try to install Python 3.
Yep.
Okay, I tried that and I got an error. Well, now I'm confused because I got lots of things. First, I tried searching for Python 3 version and I got an excron error, invalid active developer path. And
Wait,
before that,
you're
it's
in Ubuntu?
it's a Mac. Sorry, it's a Mac. And the weird thing is, I've opened the terminal before to copy things that I find on Google.
Yeah.
But here, this time I opened it, said the default interactive shell is now ZSH. And to update your account to use ZSH, please run something. And Apple gave me a link.
So you're on Mac. Were you installing Python from the website?
No, I tried to do, I went to the extension things and I turned on the Python support that VS suggested,
Okay.
and then it had get started with Python development, open a Python project folder, create a Python file, and then install Python. And I clicked also install Python via brew, but I think I don't have brew. I don't know.
You probably don't have room. Here's a go to your terminal. Go to your terminal. Type in Python 3 hyphen version. So type in that and then
Python
hit
3
enter.
hyphen version. Yeah, I get excron. I'm gonna copy this in the.
You shouldn't get anything. You should just get fucking version. It's
No, it doesn't. I get this. I don't know what's going on. I don't know
okay.
if I'm
So
inside
then
something.
go to this webpage. Go to python.org. Go to downloads, and then from here, click on download, and then install the package that you get.
All right.
So you'll get this. You'll get this. So it's install through this, and then do the version thing again. Hopefully
And
that'll work.
I'll install through everything. Okay. Is Python supposed to be installed in Mac? I know Blender uses Python and it used to work, and then I updated something on the Mac and some extensions of Blender broke. I don't know if there's like a version.
Yeah, Python 3 should be on your. I mean, again, that's the hard part about doing these classes. It should be on your Mac. So I don't know. So hopefully
Okay,
this will get you the latest version. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I'll try.
You do that, and if you have an issue, raise your hand again. Yeah.
I will.
All right, let's go to Happy Journey.
Hi,
Oh, hello.
can you hear me? I installed Python 3 before I opened up VS Code or whatever. Then I open up VS Code and I go to the open the extensions on the left side and it shows me a Python. It says it's version 2024.8.1, I think it is.
Yeah, that's the version of the extension, not of Python.
Okay. So
See that? Yep.
where do I get the Python 3 version from?
Okay, but you said if you want the Python 3, so go to terminal, and then from here type in Python 3 space hyphen version.
Is the terminal in where do I get to the terminal? Oh, just open up the window there on the right. I mean, go into the terminal window on the right and plug it in.
Yeah, what operating system are you on?
I'm on Windows.
There, Windows. Yeah. Um, Somewhere there's like the little address thing. If you type in CMD, that'll bring up the command prompt.
All right. That's over on the right there with the one or whatever. Just put CMD.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's you guys got little address bars in your thing. Yeah, if you type CMD, you should get like a black box that opens up.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Put CMD what?
So just type in CMD, so that'll give you the command prompt. So that should give you something that kind of looks like this.
All right. Just hit enter after I hit CMD.
Yep.
Nothing. Yeah. I just went over into the window on the right and put CMD.
Oh, I gotta take a look at Windows again before I do these classes. Okay, so what you should be able to do then also is so if you're in VS Code, you can also get there. So you should have the ability for terminal over the top, and you do new terminal.
Okay. Under view, it's got terminal.
Yeah.
Okay. But and then I'll put CMD in that window
No, no,
down
no,
there.
no. So basically, so if you click on new terminal, and this should open up in the bottom half of your screen.
Right.
Okay. From here, that's just your command prompt for now. You should be able to type in Python 3 space hyphen hyphen version. And then that'll give you the command. This is basically the command prompt just through VS Code.
Hyphen hyphen. Hyphen hyphen is the dash dash, right?
Yeah, sure. Dash dash. Yep.
Python was not found. Damn it.
I thought it was not fun. Okay, so Python, so it's not so okay. No, so Python 3 space hyphen hyphen version. Is it Python 3?
Uh, what do you got there before your hand? What?
So Python. So Python 3, all one word,
Okay.
space hyphen hyphen version.
I don't know. I've got dash dash. Maybe hyphen hyphen is the lowercase dash.
No, no, hyphen is a dash. Middle dash.
Okay, I went. Yeah, I put Python 3 dash dash after the space. Is it two spaces or one?
One space.
Python 3 space dash dash version. Python was not found. Yeah. Maybe I should try to. Is it? Do I need to open one of these extensions or whatever, and then it's going to put Python on there? Or because I would have thought it would have been on there.
Oh, here, let me do this. Um, hold on 1 second. Hold on. Oh, um, okay, that's fine. So yeah, can you share your screen? See if this works.
Host disabled participant screen sharing, it says.
What does it say?
It says host disabled participant screen sharing. Says you
You-
disabled screen sharing.
Yeah, you're in the right spot, Eli. If you go to shares, if you go to like to the share
Yeah.
area, it should be one of the sub options under like the caret.
Yeah, okay. No, not that. Host tools. Allow all participants to share screen. Okay, now you should be able to share your screen.
Uh,
Oh, there we go.
Live
Hey.
share. Are we on now?
We got something. Hold on, let's see.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, there you go. So, oh, yeah. See, okay, so Python 3 hyphen version. Huh. Um, let's see here. Okay, yeah, so not found. You say you've installed Python? Go back to Python.
See, I installed it. I try to reopen it and goes to modify, repair, uninstall. Maybe my options needed to be different. Like I need to open it as admin or whatever, or
Let's see, ensure all current features are correctly installed. I don't know, do 3.12.4 or 64-bit. Do repair.
So I did the Python install before I did the VS Code install. Maybe that had some effect. I don't know.
I don't know, it's Windows. It's Windows.
Yeah, I saw you
No.
complain about Windows is problematic to install.
Hello.
Oh,
The,
who's helloing?
oh me. The version command it's different for Windows. You remove the free from Python, just type Python. That's version.
Oh yeah,
Is it? Oh, well, okay.
you try that. No,
Oh nope, that didn't work.
Here, wait a minute, let's. Check Python version. Um, type Python. Oh, okay. Fuck. Yeah, Windows is different. Sorry. So type Python space hyphen version. See if that one works.
Python space hyphen version. No, maybe Python 3 space hyphen version.
Sure. Sure.
No, damn it. Yeah, I hate taking up everybody's time with my little problems.
Yeah,
What
so
is
we're fairly successful.
There's no, yeah.
So you need to get to, can you get to the command prompt itself? Not there. Again, if you click on start, you should have like a little run button. Do they still have run buttons? Try typing path to see if there's a search list.
Are you talking about down on my start taskbar?
Yeah.
I don't know because mine is pretty cleaned up.
Okay, so here, search for apps. Type in CMD here.
Search for apps.
Yeah. CMD. Command prompt. Click on that. All right. Now try Python space hyphen version.
No.
To install from the Microsoft Store. I don't know. Fuck. Just type in Python.
Eli?
Oh, somebody. Yep.
There it is.
I just
Oh,
want to mention, when I installed this, I did it from the website, and I had to add it to path during the install process. But even after I did all that right, it took about 10 or 15 minutes for the extension to even show up in VS Code.
okay.
Just saying, I got it all working now, but it took about 10 or 15 minutes before the extension would even show up in VS Code.
It's bizarre.
Should I?
So he needs to do two dashes of hyphen, not one, to check the version.
Should I install this one?
That's what I did. I actually installed it from the Play Store or whatever, what Microsoft Store, and then installed it again in Python in that order, and that seemed to work.
What most likely happened is that the path variable was not assigned properly during installation of Python.
Yeah, it gives you that option, and if you skip over it when you're doing the install in Windows, it goofs everything up.
Okay.
It's Windows.
Yeah, that's Windows. And this
So
is
you-
why I spend more money on Macs.
I'm probably gonna have to wait 10 minutes anyways then for it to start registering.
Well, that could have been my particular fudge up of Windows too. So
Yeah. Okay, so that's downloaded for you. So we'll leave you for a second.
Okay.
looks like Mark's got his hand up.
Okay, or so Josh, I got a couple people. Oh, there we go. We can view people with hands up. I think Joshua was first, or maybe he's just first in order. I don't know. We'll just do Joshua. Oops, no, he went away. So Mark is already unmuted. Mark.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Hope you're
Yep.
doing well. Thank you for the class too. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Thought of it. I don't know what my system's not working, but I've got Python installed, I believe, and I just tried to run just a simple hello world through it. And I'll try to give you a snip what I have here, or share my screen, however you want to do it.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so you're back. So yeah, so you share your screen. Yep.
Okay, let me get out of this thing here. All right, so share screen out. There you go. I can't get that one thing to run there.
Okay. So you saved it. So you saved it as hello world.py. That's fine. Print hello. All right, click that little run button right there.
I get something about a debugger there issue.
Install. Oh, did you install the extent? Click here and click these squares.
Wait a minute, one. Click where now?
See these squares over here? These are for your extensions.
I didn't catch that. Where?
See
Over to the
these little, see on the left-hand side? So you're in
Yeah.
debugger. See how these squares? Click on this icon right here. Right above the test tube.
Hold on. I'm having trouble seeing where you're pointing at. One more time, please.
Okay, so see this test tube here? I want you to click on the square. So go down, 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 squares, extensions. Yep, click on that. Python. Okay, click on that.
Yeah, I believe it's already installed.
Okay, yeah, it is already installed.
Now I am running idle as well on here. Not at the present time, but I have run idle.
Yeah, so that is installed. Close that. Close that.
Okay.
Or close, yeah. Close the extension. You see me? Oh Jesus, fuck me. Okay, so you've got Python installed. Goes to debugger. Okay, run it again. Run it again. Run. Yeah, click run and debug.
Okay.
Install an extension for Python. Did you install? Have you installed Python? Click that.
You-
Yeah, sure.
I think you have to click the Python debugger thing because you got to tell the IDE what debugger to use when you're running with debugging.
Okay. Looks like that's already set up too, I think. It says disable and uninstall of my feature of my
No, don't do that. Can't quite see the bottom of your screen.
Yeah.
What is the what's the thing? Go command palette. Maybe that's what you have to do. Go to view and code, and then click on command palette. Okay, yeah, all the way at the top. One more up. There we go. Click on that. Okay, now once you're there, view command palette. Then type in Python colon, and you want to do select interpreter.
interpreter. Okay.
Hit enter.
Mhm.
And so you should have a recommended option. So highlight that recommended option.
I don't really see one recommended one.
Do you get like a couple options like I do?
I'm, I have trouble seeing everything here.
Like when you hit enter, did you get something that says like use Python from something and you get
It
like three
says
options?
Python not installed on what he's.
No, I'm not looking at you. Okay. Oh, it says Python is not installed. Okay, so you need to install Python. Right. Jesus. Are you on Windows? What up?
Yeah, I'm Windows.
You're on Windows. Fuck Windows. Okay.
Well, I got Python installed. I look on the control panel, it shows up, but I don't know.
You got to check the version and the command prompt.
Yeah, so like the other guy, can you get to the command prompt? Go
Yeah.
down to start, and then it says like search, do CMD, do command prompt. So in Windows itself.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, go ahead. What do I type in?
All right, so click on start, and then like we're not seeing it on your screen. So if you click on
I got to
start button,
reshare. Right. Share again. There's command prompt.
yeah, there's okay. So type in which one is it? Type in Python space hyphen version.
It has to be 2 hyphens.
Well, they said for Windows, fuck me. It said for Windows it wasn't 2 hyphens.
Yeah, for Windows it's double hyphen,
It is?
but no space between the hyphen and the version though.
Jesus Christ. Okay, try Python space. There we go. Try that. Python was not found.
Maybe Python's not installed for some reason, or just can't access it, or something like that.
The
Okay,
issue is that the default the default installation for Python doesn't work. If we just use all the default options, you have to specifically change something during the installation
Yeah,
to
you have
make it
to,
work.
Okay.
like you have to add it to path during one step, otherwise it'll just skip it and you won't be able to find it.
Okay. All right, I can fix the path thing. I think I'm good for now. Let somebody else go. Thank you.
Okay.
Don't you love Windows?
Yeah, no, I really don't. This is why it's great. If you ever watch my shows and people are like, "Oh, you're just a sheep for buying Mac," I'm like, no, I like my brain. Okay, we got a couple more hands up. That was Mark. Joshua has to unmute.
Yes, I had a question concerning with I'm running Ubuntu. I already have version 3.12, what .3, I think is what the Python version was. I went into the App Store within Ubuntu, went ahead, downloaded, did code, found VS Code. The extension that it had me recommend was the Vim emulation extension. Was there a different one that you wanted?
Vim emulation. So you want
Here, I can show you what it recommended and what's installed. I just want to make sure that I have the right ones before I start.
you want, so it's Python by Microsoft. This is what you want to install.
And that can be found within Ubuntu, correct?
Yeah. Like I say, it's almost identical for Ubuntu. That's why I recommend Ubuntu on Mac, almost the same. Yeah. So
hi, there it is.
Yeah.
I'm wonderful. Okay, so there we go. Let's install that bad boy, and then from there, what was the script that you wanted to have installed and then saved under .py?
Yeah. So all I want is like this hi. So all you do is print parentheses, single quotation mark, hello world, close it, save it, run it, and it should say hello world.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Okay, so that was Joshua. Any other hands up? No other hands up.
Oh, let me lower my hand.
Yeah. Okay, how's everybody else doing?
Oh, I have a question. So I downloaded from Python 3.12 or something.
Yep.
And I was installing it. And then I found also that apparently with Mac, Sonoma, whatever version, I have to install command line tools or something in the terminal. That's why the Python 3 version wasn't working.
Okay.
I did it parallelly. And so both things were done at the same time. And now the terminal, I searched on the terminal Python 3 version,
yep.
And it gives me Python installed, but Python 3.9 something. But I supposedly installed the 3.12. So it's working. The VS Code tells me to select, like what we saw in the screen before, select the preferred interpreter.
Yeah.
And there I get the Python 3.12 that I installed. And the terminal finds another Python, so I have no idea, but at least the VS Code is working. So thanks. And thanks for your patience, man.
Yeah. Okay, that's weird. I've had the interpreter be different. I've had the VS Code be different than what's on. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to do some damn research so we don't deal with this in the future. This is much more complicated than I thought it was gonna be.
I appreciate your patience, man. Thank you very much.
So this runs for you though. This script runs for you.
Yes, it's working.
Okay. At least that works. Okay, cool.
At least it's solved.
All right. Let's see. Amen again. All right, well, let's try to do this again.
Doing great. Doing great. Doing great. Doing great. Doing great. Doing great.
Oh,
Doing
you're
great.
doing great. That's good.
Doing great. Doing great. Doing great. Doing great.
I'm gonna make a guess. Windows? Using Windows?
So that can happen sometimes.
Oh,
What
What's
he
that?
probably should do is leave the meeting, join the meeting again, check his mic. Like it's usually a mic thing. I've had that happen before in corporate. Sucks. It's Zoom.
Okay.
It's Zoom's problem. It can happen on Mac as well.
No. Oh, sure. Well, we'll say that. Okay. So yeah, Ahmed. Yeah, drop out of the meeting, then come back. We'll see if it works. Okay. Jesus. Okay. Anybody else? Any more questions?
The thing with installing Python on Windows is that the default installation options guarantees it will not work, basically. So there's a step you need to take during the installation to make it work.
Yeah, and there's one last option at the end of the installation where it asks you if you want to extend the path limit. You should probably select that as well.
Christ. All right. Yeah. So my homework for this week is to actually install Windows on one of these damn boxes and write all of this crap out. I wonder, does it work okay if you just do the App Store? So there's an App Store version. What if you just do the App Store? Does that work?
I had trouble just getting the App Store version to come in, so I went straight to the website. That's all I'm going to say. Me and the App Store do not get along.
Jesus. All right, fair enough.
It might just be my particular Windows 11 Pro, but me and the
Yeah.
App Store are not friends.
Is it just slow or buggy or what's?
When it actually shows me the application,
Yeah.
sometimes I have to restart in order for it to show up. And you shouldn't have to do that either.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
All right.
it's Windows. I mean,
Yeah.
what do you want?
Cool. Okay. Jock, is that the name? Asked to unmute. Hey, what's going on?
So I got it installed. I made the mistake. Someone pointed out that I have, so Visual Studio I had, not VS Code. So I got VS Code to install.
Okay.
I think I installed the right version of Python. I'm not sure. But when I type in what you have, print hello world, there's no colors. It's not
Oh,
clear
you
colors.
did you install the extension in VS Code?
Snitch for VS Code. Okay, I'll try looking for that one.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what gives you, there's this thing called IntelliSense and debugging. So if you don't have colors, most likely you didn't install it. So there's an extension that's in VS Code that you have to install too. Okay, let's try Alman again. Hello.
Doing great. 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 Doing great.
And that's a no. Yeah, I don't know. More than happy to help you, but I don't know. Here, let's go back to Jock again. Hey, what's up?
So you're talking to me?
Yeah, Jock Stroud. Yep.
So I see it's like Python language support and extension. My option are uninstall or switch to pre-release version.
Oh, so it's already installed. Okay. So when you do this hi.py, have you saved it? Has it actually been saved?
Let me go back to that. The code itself. Wait a minute, how do I get out? Okay, I'm trying to go back to what I wrote. Let me get out of this. Trying to go back to where my terminal. It won't. I'm trying to figure out how do I get out of that and go back to my terminal. It's like, geez, oh Pete. Okay. So got back to my terminal. All I have, the only option I have, I see at the top are extension Python. It says print hello world untitled and extension Pylance at the very top.
So can you just do file,
Just
save,
thing.
file, save, and then just save it as save it as something. Where's my
Print
file?
hello world.
Yeah, you just call it like hello world.py or whatever.
trying to get rid of the print, just say hello world.py, save. Bingo, that works.
Okay, so it wasn't saved. Yeah, so for anybody out there, yeah, if you don't save the file, sorry, you have to save the file as a .py before you can run the script. Yeah.
Will we do that? So every time we run this, every time we run the script, we have to save it. Not so is that the same thing as like compile in a sense? I'm trying to think if that's the right terminology.
No, you don't have to save it in between. So like I have this right now, and I can just change this to class, and I can run it, but it has to be saved initially before because if you don't save it, the file doesn't exist yet. That makes sense.
Gotcha. Thanks again. Is that all we're gonna pretty much cover today?
Yes, that's all we're gonna cover. Yep.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yep, no problem. So yeah, probably I'm going through, I'm just creating these classes as I go. So probably early next week it'll be the first one where I actually start writing some code out and explain how this stuff works for you guys. Let's see, Evan.
If I can keep my son's binky in. I got it to all work and everything. I was just curious. I was trying to run the import requests. Is that a real website that we can go to? Should it be able to pull from that IP-API.com? Or is that something you have local?
Yeah, no, this is if you've seen when I was doing the Python classes before, it's one of the ones that I liked. So yeah, this is real.
Oh, I'm a dumbass. Yeah, it matters that you have an actual IP address. Sorry, an actual web address. There we go. Should run now.
Yeah.
Thanks. There we go. Yep.
Yeah. And what's cool with this is, so there's another API, and I'll show you how to use that. Again, I've done classes on it, but it can pull your local external IP address. And so what you can do is you can kind of add to these. So you can pull your IP address, and then once you have your IP address, you can plug that into this, and then you can start grabbing other information. Yeah. Cool.
There was also
Oops. Alex Smith.
Hello. I got a quick question. Yeah. Are these classes going to be on a consistent schedule or will it be like up in the air?
Right now, they're going to be up in there. Right now, I'm seeing if I can maintain my sanity doing these. They're probably going to be in the afternoons on weekdays. Beyond that, like I said, it takes a bit of time to actually write these things out. So my thought with this whole thing is, again, I want to so the classes will exist. And then my hope is that you can take them in almost any block that you want. Like if you take them 1 through 30, it'll probably make the most sense. But the idea is you could take this class and then you could take class number 5, then you could take class number 20. And then when they come around again, you could take class number 3 if you really wanted to. So yeah, so right now it is a little sporadic simply because, yeah, I'm literally writing these things out and then we're doing them. Yeah. Does that make sense, Alex?
Oh, yes, it does make sense. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Evan again. Oh,
Yeah. So
you're on.
Eli, just like kudos, brother. Like, I took some of your networking classes back in 2015 when I started working at Viavi Solutions and telecommunications test and measurement. So knowing that, you're doing this out of the goodness of your heart, or however you're going to monetize this, right? But if it was possible, maybe I can look into it or help you out, like with getting these materials that you're writing like into our hands, like in some neutral fashion, so that do you know I'm getting at? Like you're writing this code base, right, that you're going to use for your lessons. You're putting your PowerPoint presentation out there. If there was any way that we could establish like a neutral zone, like G Drive or something like that, where these files could live, so we can look at them.
Yeah, that's so the plan is I didn't get to it today. GitHub. So I actually have a Silicon Dojo GitHub account. And so what I'll do is I'll just zip so the entire class will be in a zip file. So the slides, the notes, plus the code will just get zipped and then you can download it from there. Yeah. Cool, cool. Let's see here. I'll do just Arbor. Just Arbor, what's up?
Yep. No, I just had a similar idea as Evan, but mine was more towards if we have examples or ideas that are tangible to help people learn better, or even during like the class, small little things. Something to add: the JSON, when you want to print it out, and when it's like very long, it's almost unreadable. And there's something simple called as JSON prettifier that just very naturally structures data very well. So it makes it very easy to read. Then there's like 1,000 other small little things that just make life so easy and the concept to learn so well. That I think that could help everyone move in the right direction pretty much. So if we have these ideas, I've been writing down a few things while I was observing this class. If you would approve, you can put it in. If you think that they're not valuable, you just drop them. And it could be something that we can like send you these type of ideas and then you decide.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Once I get a little bit more under, once my feet are a little bit more under me, I'll be more interested in that. Because again, this is a little bit more difficult than people actually think it is. So I like the idea, like hold off for a couple of weeks and then we'll swing back to that. Like, yeah, because this is obviously this whole troubleshooting disaster has been, so yeah. So I like the idea, and yeah, we'll figure that out going forward. Oh God, almond. Oh. Well, it's a new word. Dancing. Sorry, man. I don't know, dude. Oh no. Okay, it is 4:30. Sorry, man. I don't know. Maybe next maybe yeah, I don't know. Um any final questions? I do gotta go. There's a meetup tonight. Anything else from anybody? That's it. All right, cool. So yeah, so this was the first class. I will post up the link to GitHub once I've done that. They'll probably be tomorrow. I am going to work on trying to figure out a troubleshooting routine for Windows. Again, for anybody, all snark aside, this is one of the reasons I like Mac. Is I'm not saying that Mac just works. That is incorrect, but it usually just works. So that's why I do like using Macs. But I will try to figure out a troubleshooting routine for Windows. And yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna work on the class. So it's what, Wednesday? So probably Monday. I'd say probably Monday we'll do the class, next class. I'm probably gonna shoot for like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. This seems good, at least for me. Yeah, that's about all I got for today. So if there's no more hands up, yeah, I guess that's it. So okay, see you guys later.